Hey there, EB here with the weekly update. It is Thursday, August 15th. Uh, I know you're getting sick of me saying it, but lots to talk about today. Busy week. In the first part of the week, my new podcast, Good Skill Podcast, Betting on Yourself, released with the first episode being Rebecca Rush, the Queen of Pain. She was amazing, 7-time mountain bike champion. In the coming weeks, we have some really interesting podcasts that I've already recorded. Yesterday, I interviewed former Governor Mark Sanford, and one of the things I talked about after interviewing him was, the purpose of this podcast is not just to interview people that everybody will like. Sometimes you interview people that some people like and some people don't, but it's really to find out how they have achieved a level of success, or if they have stumbled and fallen, how have they gotten back up. It doesn't happen by luck, it happens by skill, it happens by your training. And so stay with me. There's a little to get even from the people that you may not like. And I'll ask the hard questions of them. I don't have to agree 100% of the time with people that I interview, but certain things that they may represent I agree with, and other things they don't. So I think you'll find it interesting. Let me know what you think. This week, the major news is in our state of South Carolina is Alex Murdaugh's appeals. He has two appeals going on, one from the conviction of the double murder case, and then the other, one of his pleas of guilt in federal court in front of Judge Richard Gergel, where he got 40 years on the financial crimes he admitted to stealing from his victims. So let's just start with the murder case. Every convicted murderer appeals their conviction. That's nothing new. They'll do it all the way up to the South Carolina Supreme Court, and then they'll go to federal court. They'll argue ineffective assistance of counsel. I don't like that term because I think counsel can be ineffective but not negligent. They choose certain strategies that they think will be effective, but they're not effective either with the court or the jury. So I think it's a bad term. It should be negligent representation of counsel. So by counsel. So in his case, Alex is going to be appealing two things. One, he's going to appeal the decisions that were made by Judge Newman pre-trial to hold the trial, for instance, in Walterboro County, and not move the venue to a place where the defense said was not so salted with the sensational news about Alex's story. But as everybody knows, you couldn't get a jury that hadn't heard about Alex Murdaugh, even in as far away as Timbuktu or Malta or Russia even. The fact of the matter is, you're not entitled to a jury that doesn't know anything about your case. You're entitled to an impartial jury that's going to be fair and objective. So that'll be one of the things that he appeals. The second thing is all the evidentiary decisions that were made on admission of evidence or evidence that the defense may have wanted included that Judge Newman ruled against. For instance, all the financial crimes that they objected to coming in. I think that's going to be upheld on appeal. I also believe that if you never even brought the financial crime cases, the financial crimes in, that he would have been convicted anyway of murder. I think the kennel video, as well as his behavior after he notified the police at 10 o'clock at night, showed the behavior of a man that was guilty. For me, his clothes were totally clean. If my kid, my son, and my wife were on the ground bleeding and had their head shot off, I'd be, squeezing the life, trying to squeeze the life back in them, screaming to the moon, and I'd have blood and dirt all over me. So I don't think that's going to go anywhere. The more serious appeal, though, is the decision made by Chief Justice Toll in February of this year, where she heard the motion for a new trial based on the juror interference that the defense alleged by Becky Hill. Now, that's a very serious charge, and as we know, Justice Toll, had a 3-day hearing on that. or 2 days, excuse me, full day hearings. She interviewed all the jurors. The defense put up witnesses of Becky Hill and other clerks of court. And at the end of the examinations, Justice Toll felt that there was not juror interference done by Becky Hill. She wasn't going to reverse the convictions. She held that Becky Hill acted inappropriately, but she applied a South Carolina rule of law standard, which held that you not only have to show that there were actions or statements taken or done by Becky Hill, but that those statements and actions had an effect on the juror's verdict, and that the jury rendered a decision that they otherwise would not have rendered. The defense argued that Justice Toll should have applied the federal standard, which doesn't have the second prong of having to prove that the juror's verdict was compromised. All you have to show is that Becky Hill acted in such a way or provided statements to the jurors that went beyond just her ministerial functions of what do you want for lunch, how do you get to the clerk of court, to the court, to and fro the courthouse, all those things, what time is court going to end. She can talk about that stuff till the cows come home. But what she can't talk about is substantive things. And what ended up happening is that she declared, after hearing the testimony of my 6 jurors that I represented, that they were not influenced. She said that Becky Hill did say some things that she felt were inappropriate to the jury. Now, only one of the jurors said that she heard Becky Hill saying things like, watch Alex's body language, don't believe what he said. Becky Hill testified that I just said, pay attention, and she said that in a general sense. So this is what's going to go up to the South Carolina Supreme Court. Which makes it unusual is the fact that it bypassed the Intermediate Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court grabbed it immediately. So, I was asked this morning when I was on CNN, what do I think is going to happen, and also on Court TV. And, for our system to work, it's got to work for the worst of us, not just for the best of us. And I believe that Alex Murdaugh, although is the worst of us, is entitled to a fair and impartial trial. Hey, good morning, Dana. Good to see you. He's entitled to a fair and impartial trial. And so it's going to come down to whether our Supreme Court decides that Justice Toll was correctly in providing and using the South Carolina standard, or they say she was wrong and that she should have provided the federal standard when she used her analysis. Regardless of how the outcome, it's going to be appealed, whether it's going to be appealed by Alex Murdaugh or the state. Alex is going to take this all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And there's a good possibility that this could be reversed because she did not utilize the federal standard. But let's be clear here. Alex Murdaugh and his lawyers think that they are the organ grinder and that the justice system is the monkey. Alex is never going to see the light of day. With his state court financial crime sentence of 27 years and the federal court sentence of 40 years, regardless of if this murder conviction gets reversed, he'll go back, they will try him again. I believe he will be convicted. But he's never going to get out of jail, and he's got more time on his hands than Carter's got liver pills. So what he's going to do is burden the system. Good morning, Kimberly. Thanks for watching me on Court TV. He's going to burden the system. He's got nothing but time. So he's going to file every motion in the world. And that leads us to the federal appeal. Now he has a federal appeal where after he pled guilty last September in front of federal judge Richard Gergel to the federal financial crimes where he stole money from the victims and said he wouldn't appeal, and Jim Griffin, his lawyer, got in front of the judge and said, I understand that you may upward enhance his sentence from what the guidelines say based on his conduct, and we accept that. Judge Gergel sentenced him to 40 years, where they thought he was going to get 20 to 30. And they're now appealing that and saying it's cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment. But if you heard what Judge Gergel said, he said that Alex's crimes are so unique that, you know, if you look at all the other financial crime manipulators, whether it's Sam Bankman-Fried, or there was a lady on Wall Street that started a pharmaceutical company and she bilked their investors. The key word is investors. People actually wanted to make money on their money. Alex's victims didn't want to make money at all. They were not investing in him to make money for them. They needed their money to live the rest of their lives or get medical treatment or the loss of income of a loved one. And so that's why Judge Gergel held that it was so unique in what Alex's crimes were, and that's why he gave him 40 years. So if I was to forecast, I would say at the end of the day, Alex may get a new trial on the murder charges if a federal court or the United States Supreme Court says that Justice Toll should have applied the federal standard. I think his appeal on the 40 years is going to be dismissed. So if that happens, he has 27 years doing 23 of those years in a state prison. And if he was to live to be 78 years old, because he has to do the 23, then he'll go do the rest of his time in a federal prison. The issue is going to be, well, does he get any credit while he's in prison if he rats people out or tries to cooperate and stop future crimes? That we shall see. So the next thing I want to talk about is interesting. There's a documentary coming out on Scott and Lacey Peterson. You remember that? Scott Peterson, who he was this, you know, guy that had good-looking hair, good-looking guy. Lacey was good-looking, and his wife and son Connor were found very close to each other in barrels out in California. He was having an affair with a lady named Amber Fry. He's done, I think, 21 years. Well, a new 3-part documentary is coming out on Peacock, where he admits that he should not have had these extramarital affairs, especially with Amber Fry, but he continues to deny his innocence, his guilt. So I'm interested to see what it looks like. You know, we had the other documentaries where the people, Casey Anthony came out, and she was compelling about her innocence at that time in the documentary, but I still believe she had something to do with it, and I certainly believe that Scott Peterson had something to do with it. We have a situation in the Middle East that's getting scary. Israel went in and thankfully killed the Hamas leader, but they did it on Iran soil. Iran is threatening to retaliate against Israel directly. I think it's going to bring the United States in that retaliation. So the United States, rightfully so, deployed 2 aircraft carriers to that area. I think the price of oil is going to go up. There'll be some aggressive actions taken against our naval brigade there, so that's going to be interesting to see. The Olympics are over. We'll have the Special Olympics coming at the end of the month, but they were absolutely amazing. I know that it started off bad with the drag queen Last Supper, and I was really down on that, but the Americans did amazing. Amazing, I think, at track and field, amazing at gymnastics. The female swimmers did amazing, but I think the male swimmers didn't do as good as they should have. The pool was criticized because it was only 4 feet or 5 feet deep instead of deeper, which created too much drag, and they felt that the pool was slow, and that's why there wasn't as many world records. I thought France did an amazing job. A lot of renewable energy went into the Olympic venues. I like the fact that they did beach volleyball underneath the Eiffel Tower. They just did an incredible job, and that was on the heels of a lot of internal political discord of warring political parties and the country being splintered. I think they came together, and they did an amazing job. Watching track and field, the 400 hurdler, Sydney, I forget her last name, she won by 25 yards. She was just amazing. Our 100-meter female runner, She didn't make it in the finals in the 100 and 200, but she anchored an amazing leg on the 4x100 female runners, and they broke an Olympic record that stood for 30 years. So that was pretty interesting. I thought Lyles, the sprinter, was amazing. He won the 100 meter, but in the 200 meter, he had COVID and finished with a bronze medal, which was pretty amazing. I'm not sure he should have ran. I saw him running around without a mask, and that was a little bit reckless. The Jordan Childs bronze medal situation is really, really sad. She did an amazing job. She earned her bronze medal. Her routine had a degree of difficulty much greater than the Romanian gymnast, and they made an appeal, but the appeal came after 60 seconds of the end of her routine, after the scoring came in. And so after they gave her the gold medal, the Romanians complained, and they're taking away her bronze medal on a technicality. The United States has appealed. They're going to take it now to the full United States Olympic Committee and then to the World Olympic Committee. I do not believe that Jordan Giles should have to give back her bronze medal. I think that would be a disgrace. We also have something unusual happening, which is the Ukrainians invaded Russia. They took over a Russian city, which is the first time in 40 years that Russia has lost some of its property. I think it has shocked Putin. I think it was brilliant on the Ukrainians' part. It would lead, if they can take control of that city, to them having some negotiating power for a resolution of this war, because Russia wants some of the Ukraine land that they have also won during the war. But it's amazing. I never thought I'd see the day where Russia would lose some of its land. Putin definitely didn't have his eye on the ball as Ukraine was able to get into that city. So that's going to be interesting to watch. I'll tell you this, Aaron Judge hitting his 300th home run last night in a Yankee uniform. He did it faster than any other baseball player who has ever lived, and that includes Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, Willie Mays, Alex Rodriguez, Ralph Kiner. He did it in 932 games, which is extraordinary. The only thing is he's 32 years old. His career in the majors started when he was like 25. So, is he going to have enough time left to get to 700 home runs? We will have to wait to see. He's not the youngest person to get to 300. That belongs to Alex Rodriguez, who ended up with 700 home runs. So Judge is a modern-day Paul Bunyan, and Juan Soto, who the Yankees, hey Dana, how are you doing? Juan Soto was picked up by the Yankees. He's 25 years old. Before this season, he is one of the biggest talents in baseball, other than Ronald Acuna Jr. as a young player and Bobby Witt. He has 35 home runs for the season. Judge has 42, and Shohei Ohtani has 37. But can you imagine the murderer's row of you walk Soto, and then you have to pitch to Aaron Judge? It's going to be interesting to see. The Yankees are in first place. Whether the Orioles can win out, and the Yankees have to play their way into the playoffs. But they're going to have to spend a lot of money to re-sign Juan Soto in the offseason. The next thing is there was a court ruling against Google regarding their searching primacy that they have on the internet and their search term usage. And the court said that they're going to break it up so that other search engines will be able to compete with Google for top priority. Yes, Patty, you are correct. I forgot. I'm getting down to the basketball. I think this year's team was, in a way, as good as the Dream Team. The Dream Team in 1992 didn't play as many professionals, although I think they had better basketball players from an all-time standpoint of Jordan, Barkley, Bird, Malone, Stockton, you name it. But this team, who was coached by Steve Kerr, who I believe did a really bad job with Jason Tatum, who happens to be one of the 5 best basketball players in the NBA. He's all NBA every year. His team just won the NBA championship. I think Derek White getting put on the team instead of Jaylen Brown was a disgrace. I think it had something to do with Nike and Reebok. And it turns out that Jason Tatum didn't play 2 out of the 5 games. But Steph Curry and LeBron James and Kevin Durant, the elder guard, really won this Olympics, because the other teams now have caught up to America. And the FIFA basketball, European basketball, is so much different than NBA basketball. It's harder for our players in the NBA to play on the international level because they can't play as much street ball. It's much more physical. They don't call fouls as much. You have to play more defense in FIFA. And they beat Serbia 3 times in 3 weeks. Jokic, who has been the last MVP for the last 3 years in the NBA, had a great game in the semifinals, but the United States won. My hat is off to LeBron James. I'm not a big fan of his, but at 39 years old, he was amazing. But let's talk to Steph Curry now. I think Steph Curry is one of the top 5 best players of all time. No question. He's the best shooter of all time, the best three-point shooter of all time, but he's a hell of a playmaker, a hell of a point guard. The 4 shots that he made in the 4th quarter in the championship game, with the last one being over Victor Wembanyama, who's 7'4", was amazing. I mean, he can shoot from the parking lot with his eyes closed. And so I think he supplants Magic Johnson. I know that's sacrilegious to a lot of people, but don't forget, Steph has won 4 NBA championships, 2 MVPs, 2 final MVPs. Now he's an Olympic gold medalist, and I think it was an amazing performance by him. Next, we had we're starting to see more press conferences by former President Donald Trump. He went on a rant about a helicopter incident where he almost crashed, and he said it was with former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, who contends that's not true. It appears it was with Gavin Newsom and former Governor Jerry Brown, but he's doubling down. Kamala Harris hasn't talked about it, but it's really interesting now that Trump, after his assassination, was going to try to show a nicer version, said that he's going back to a meaner version, the version that got him elected in 2016. I heard someone say this election is not a fight between Democrats and Republicans, it's a fight between good and evil. I mean, is that where we've gone with our country? Is it good versus evil? Can we just get back to saying it's a disagreement and you either agree with the Republicans or you agree with the Democrats? And you can disagree. One thing that I am concerned about is former President Trump had his campaign account hacked, and he's blaming it on the Iranians. There's so much disinformation that is being put out by the Iranians, Russia, and China through the internet. Now, I think hacking into political candidates' accounts is really problematic. Casey just told us that there was, Casey O'Dell said there was at least 1 arrest made in connection with Matthew Perry's death. That death was sad, but I have a feeling it had to do with drugs and who sold him drugs, and possibly fentanyl. It's going to be interesting to see where that plays out. The final gold medal count was pretty interesting. We cleaned up on medal count. We had over 129 medals, gold, bronze, and silver, and China had 92. But what's interesting is the USA and China tied on gold medals, and they had 40 apiece of gold medals. But let's not forget that Russia was not competing in this Olympics, and usually they do a good job, not so much in swimming, but in gymnastics and track and field. So that is a little bit of an asterisk, but not by much. I do want to talk briefly about is this better, Lynn, Clark? Can you hear it a little bit better? I do want to talk briefly. There was a Supreme Court decision called the Chevron decision in May of this year. Everybody focused on the immunity decision by the Supreme Court this year, as well as that they didn't reverse the morning after abortion pill. They didn't hold that it's constitutional. They just held that the standing of the complaining party was not enough to bring the matter before the court, and so they may do it in the future. But the Chevron decision was in May, and you hear a lot about Donald Trump and Steve Bannon and some of the Republicans say they want to deconstruct the administrative state. Deconstructing the administrative state is a goal of the Republicans. It also was highly affected by the Supreme Court decision in the Chevron case because they reversed 40 years worth of jurisprudence that gave different regulatory agencies, whether it's Department of Education, the Department of Labor, Department of Transportation, enforcement powers. So the byproduct of saying that, no, they don't have the enforcement powers, that this is more of a Justice Department function. The repercussions are there was a case going on in Texas where 4 students sued the school district because they were bullied. Some were bullied because of their gender identity, some were regarding their sexuality, and some were bullied simply because they're made fun of the way they were looking. The Department of Education, Federal Department of Education, brought a civil rights case and said to the school district, you have to start enacting policies and come up with policies that will make these kids and other kids like them safe. Well, after the decision by the Supreme Court to reverse the rights of these administrative agencies to champion these discriminatory acts, the Texas school district told the federal government, basically, go screw yourself. We're not going to comply. You can bring us to the courts. The Supreme Court just gave us the right to say no and not follow what you say, that at this point what you say is only guidelines and not mandatory. So there are repercussions that we're seeing if you deconstruct the administrative state. You know, the Republicans want to eliminate the whole entire Federal Department of Education. And what is going to happen now in Texas is librarians are going to start being arrested. They've already they're thinking of bringing one librarian up for criminal charges because she refuses to remove books that the local Board of Education say should not be in a library. Those about gender identity, those who talk about gay relationships. They could be classic novels if there's too much homosexuality in those novels. So it's starting to be a little bit of a dystopian type of environment. I don't think we're getting to the point of Handmaid's Tales, but it's pretty close. So now I want to turn to some questions of the week. One of my favorites, Casey Odell, said, when should we expect to hear the Supreme Court taking oral arguments on Alex Murdaugh's appeal? It was going to be later this fall. I think there was an extension granted, but it is going to be sometime, I would think, late fall next year, early winter. And yes, I believe that they'll be able to be seen by the public. I'm not sure that they're going to be open to the public, but I think that they will be seen by the public. But the Supreme Court can always make an exception and open it to the public. I think they should open it to the public. I think that it is a public case. Certainly it was televised, and I think it should be televised. So I think a lot of news agencies are going to petition our South Carolina Supreme Court to do that. Debbie asks, why doesn't Dick and Jim just drop Alex? I think they want to see the murder trial through on a reversal. Whether they are the ones that retry it, I don't know if it does get reversed, but I think that is what they want to do. I don't think they're ultimately going to continue with all the appeals from the financial crime cases, But remember, Dick just lost his Senate seat. He doesn't want to go out a loser. So that's going to be an interesting situation. Debbie also asked me, what are my thoughts on the investigation into Representative R.J. May? You know, it's interesting. You know, people in glass houses can't throw rocks. He's a Tea Party representative who I believe, what I heard, was arrested for some kind of pornography on his home computer. I don't know who turned him in. I don't know if that's true. He gave a false reason, I think, publicly why he was arrested in the first place, but it turns out it has something to do with pornography. So, hey, be careful when you throw rocks. You better be living clean. Sarah asked, in True Sunlight bonus episode last week, they unpacked whether Buster falls into a public figure. I don't think he's a public figure. I think he's a quasi-public figure. He certainly injected himself into the public when he went on Fox News and did his only live interview at that time. I don't know if he's done more. But I think there is going to be some requirement that he show true malice, whether it's the New York Times versus Sullivan, actual malice that a public figure has to show. But, you know, accusing him of murder and accusing him of being gay, those are per se violations of the defamation law where you don't have to prove damages. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's classified by the court in his defamation case, whether he's a public or private figure. Dana Cox asked, am I familiar with the Ellen Greenberg case in Philadelphia? Oh, yes, I am. She was stabbed like 30 times. They claim it was a suicide. Some of the stabs were in the back of her neck. Her parents have tried for years and years and years to get the Philadelphia prosecution office to open this as a murder case. I'm not sure whether it has been. I believe it was a murder. I don't believe it was a suicide. I don't believe you could stab yourself 30 times. It's interesting to see whether there's a person of interest that is close to her. But yes, I am familiar with it. And I do agree, Dana, that the entire Murdaugh case is extremely sad. So that is weekly update for this week. I appreciate everybody listening in, and have a great weekend, and we'll talk next week. Evie out.